And salutations. I hope everybody's well. I'm still dealing with some sinus issues, so please be patient with my voice. I'd appreciate it. This is going to be a vlog style, but I'm going to screencast still and use some pictures and images. And actually, I have my journal sitting here. It's not notes. If you hear me turning pages, it is to keep me focused. I continue to do these testimonial videos, documentation videos to again highlight synchronicities that go on around us. And I use that word purposely to invite more people to relate openly to my story. And because if we can relate to one another and have that mutual compassion and respect for each other, we can hopefully move forward in a more productive way with each other. And that's my goal these days, and to try and walk my own talk as well. But this is for documentation purposes. And if you've listened to the rest of my story, welcome. And some of this should make sense, some of it might not. But again, I'll try to put them in playlists so they do make more sense. Now, I was thinking, and I've talked about this before, but not in this way. I didn't relate these two topics. And it might be a live stream research with me this week. So I wanted to get your thoughts on it. I can turn comments on, I suppose, but I don't expect a lot of people to show up because of the time of day it is, and it's right after a holiday. I'll touch on that briefly. And so, yeah. I was thinking about magnets and memory again, because magnets, if they are powerful enough, have the ability to erase portions of or complete memories on hard drives, and not digital. You can't do that with digital, and that's the one, I guess, good thing and bad thing about it. You know, everything comes with a cost. And so there are pros and cons with almost most every, let's say, inanimate entity that we deal with. Intention and how we use that technology or intellect, knowledge is key. So we know that magnets can erase memory, and that we know that this can also be done in the human memory. We found a page a while back, probably about a year ago, and when we were researching this and we first stepped into it, they do new therapy now for people with PTSD, vets a lot, and I would imagine it's almost along the lines of old school electroshock therapy. It is kind of what I relate it to, but maybe it's more humane. I don't know, but apparently people sign up for this and get it done purposely, intentionally. And again, you have the movie relation of not what dreams may come. Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, where Jim Carrey again. I still got to do the Jim Carrey phenomenon video on this channel. It's crazy wild how many of his stories are wrapped up in the background tapestry here. JC, Jim Carrey, Jiminy Cricket, Jesus Christ. It's just strange. These patterns seem to hold in certain ways, though not necessarily with our free will. We can change our patterned behavior. And again, that is the main goal I have personally, and also with the channel as a quote-unquote very loosely used term, ministry. But I say that because I do try to tell people and warn people about certain things. But this is about warnings that I've received. And so I only knew to look up magnets because people around me were throwing them into conversations in ways that they didn't fit. So I knew to pay attention to that aspect. Some people say they have visions or whatever. I guess God just made me very aware at recognizing patterns and highlight words that people say. Now, again, this is what the Satanists do. They throw it in your face, but not everybody can pick up on that. And that's something I try to alchemize it into good energy and display it to others so you know what's going on around you and you can be better prepared and defend yourself spiritually speaking. I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in violence. I have to say that every video. There's a reason I say that I'm not going to get into now. So we have in the past ancient civilizations or groups, parts of ancient civilizations that have seemingly disappeared overnight. Now, this has been told for groups of the Mayans and also Aztecs, also Iroquois, a lot of Native American Indians. That's a pattern that holds as well with these disappearances. Now you're going to say, why are you talking about disappearances and magnets and memories? Just follow me for a second. This is looking at something from maybe a different perspective. Now, obviously, we know there's good and bad out there by now. If you can't see that much, this definitely is not the channel for you, and I would urge you to seek some type of spiritual maturation if you cannot see that at this point. So follow me. The pattern is that groups of people disappear in history. They seem to have, they are native to the land, or at least they, back in the day, they would have said they were less civilized. Today, I would say they are minimalists and people who know how to work with, okay, later. That's funny to me. You really need to work on your approach because pointing your finger at somebody and calling them crazy doesn't work anymore. Like, it really just doesn't. How many diseases are y'all going to try to label upon us before you say, okay, maybe there's something to all these things they're talking about? These are all things that are researchable. You can look them up yourself, but you probably won't because you're too intellectually lazy to do such a thing. So I'm going to move forward. Memories and magnets. We know that magnets can erase, if they're strong enough and powerful enough, they can erase computer hard drive memories, parts of it, or entirely. Not digitally speaking, though. So when certain solar events occur, okay, like CMEs, all right, and we are having a solar minimum or a solar maximum, what first happens is in Earth's atmosphere, you might want to call it the firmament, the Van Allen belt. I don't personally care. They've renamed it so many times in just my lifetime. I can't keep up, okay? But the magnetosphere will fluctuate. It will increase the magnetism in the environment, in the atmosphere, or it will decrease it. And it basically, what it does is, and this is the best way I can explain it because I'm not a physics girl, but again, this is not about that at this point. You can go research this on your own if you're interested. It drops that for a time when there is a solar maximum, especially. That's what we have coming up with this eclipse. It is the perfect storm, and people out there saying that people like me are alarmists or fearmongers. I've been doing this since after the last eclipse. A lot of us small, regular people who don't have sponsors and talent agents to worry about or to please. Obviously, I'm not worried about popularity or losing money because all this has brought me is stalking, harassment, and grief. So I do this to try and help. What if, follow me here, so in history, when these groups of people disappear, there's a pattern that holds for them as well. Oftentimes, there's some type of Native American element to it, but I want to take that even further and say people who live in harmony with nature, people who are not transgressing against nature, going against natural order. They didn't use electricity. Any weapons that they made were made from nature. There were no guns and things of that nature. Native Americans lived off of the land. They were very self-sustainable, and they knew not to overtake or take too much from the earth. One for every 3, and then you plant another is usually the law as far as I understand it when we're talking about foraging and gathering and harvesting. Okay, so if you look at this pattern throughout history of groups of people that disappeared, like groups of Mayans and Aztecs, and like colony at Roanoke, and now today, today I found out they're in the wrong order. I apologize. Today, right before this video, I found another one that I was unfamiliar with, but it is more part of our current history, and it looks like it was at the time of the Spanish flu. That comes up a lot too in the last few years with a lot of the things that we're seeing take place. So, Village of the Dead, and I probably won't say this right, so I apologize in advance. Angiacune Lake, Canada. The whole village disappeared seemingly overnight. Now, one reason for some of this, and I'm not going to deny that at all, is Spanish Inquisition and conquistadors, and pretty much one group of people trying to tell another group of people that they need to be more like them because that's more civilized. I want to take that out of the equation and say, whatever this pattern is, it seems to hold with people who are living in harmony with nature. And I think that's worth noting. So what if when these solar events happen, when these events take place, what if, and follow me here because we can look this up, and again, I like to talk about things that I'm thinking about that may lead into future live streams that we can all discuss together. The comments will be turned on after the video is done. I don't want to get too far off track, but I do call trolls out sometimes because they just need it. They just do. A lot of what happened to me, I feel like was unjust and wrong, but it got me to change my behavior, and it got me to be more self-aware of how my behavior affected those around me. And I think that's what needs to be done. We have let this behavior continue for far too long in our society. And I'm not talking about being violent with people or making people accept a certain religion, creed, or any of that. I'm talking about common respect and decency because we all live in the same place. So we should all want to see our brothers and our neighbors succeed, because to want them to fail is to want ourselves to fail. You're calling me crazy today. Do you know how to fish if you need to sustain yourself? I do. I could teach you that. But maybe I won't if you're going to continue to act that way. We don't know when we're going to need each other. So if you can't do it for a compassionate reason, at least do it for a selfless one or self-preservation and say, hey, I might need these people in the future. They don't always need a clown or a jokester or a gesture. Sometimes we need people who have actual skills and critical thinking abilities still. Because pointing at somebody and saying, you're crazy, it doesn't fly no more. It just shows you have very little intelligence. So what if these groups of people disappeared seemingly overnight because something happened in the environment with solar activity, right? Solar and or lunar activity, both. But I'm more specifically thinking along the lines of like a solar maximum, because that seems to make our, what do I want to call it? Our protection waver, and it can increase or decrease the amount of magnetism that is in our direct atmosphere and environment. Now, some people were talking about MCO a while back. They think it's going to be a plasma event. I'm not going to deny that either. I've gotten a lot of clues about rubber, and rubber is insulating from lightning storms. And there is scripture that says these events will begin with strong thunders and shakings and lightnings and light in the sky. So take that as you will as well. But what if something happens that increases the magnetism and it actually has done something to people's brains? Just think about it for a second. What if suddenly everybody was reset and erased their memory, right? Like they still knew basic skills. They're still adults, right? They still remember probably how to walk, talk, maybe talk, maybe in different languages, who knows. But the basics, right? Their life story, what if that disappeared? And suddenly you look around and it's like you're in a strange place with all these strange people. You don't know what's going on and you have no idea of how you got there. Would you just venture off? Would it seem like you were in some haunted museum? It wouldn't even feel like you're home and you would have to leave? Would you feel connected and tethered to that group of people still and your family? I don't know, but I think it's worth looking at because of all the different groups of people who seemingly disappeared overnight. And again, usually there's more than one thing at the root of situations and anomalies like this that occur. So that's something I think that is interesting, right? It's an interesting line of thought, and there is scientific precedent for it. So calling me crazy is just stupid. And I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of patience for that anymore. And I'll get to why in a minute. Now I want to talk about personal warnings that I received regarding the 8th, and they're like just weird and kind of quirky. But if you've watched any more of my testimony or you followed me from the original channel, Bree and Jen, I document these things because it highlights either synchronistic activity, which can be diabolical in nature or demonic, but it also can be angelic in nature as well, as in we are being communicated with. We are not alone. We do have help in this, but we're not aware of it because we are too drowned in the noise of our everyday lives and the society that we live in and the way that we live. It's real easy for someone who lives in the city to call somebody else who lives outside of the city a bum or crazy or what have you. But when you come down to it, when the city shuts down or something happens with that man-made monopoly, who is going to be the one who is doing better? The person who already knows how to survive, like homeless people? Or the people who only knew how to push buttons and pass the buck, quite literally? We're down to the wire here because things are happening in our country. We are already under judgment, or these things would not be happening. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. And I know that that's not popular. I know that that makes people shut the channel off or unsubscribe, which should prove to you why people like me are doing this. Now, granted, we might get to the 8th and nothing will happen. That would be awesome. I would be happy to be wrong. That would not bother me in the least. I have things that I would still like to do with my life. However, after seeing how things have progressed the last several years and looking back, if you can still say everything is normal and there's nothing going on and that I'm just paranoid and I'm just crazy, I'm not the one with the problem. It's not my fault you're blind. And I don't mean you specifically. I'm talking, to trying to reach a group of people who are basically unreachable at this time, and I should probably stop trying to do that. But those of us who have hearts of God, and not that we are God, we understand, like the heart of a parent, and we understand or maybe relate to the fact that we are created beings and we are loved, right? But at the same time, a good parent disciplines their children, and the people now telling you not to worry, they're wolves in sheep's clothing. If you can look around and really say that there is nothing happening and there is nothing wrong, I pray for you, because your soul and your life are in dire jeopardy at this point. And whoever's around you, you're just going to get other people hurt as well with that type of attitude. Now, these are, again, little quirks regarding the 8th that I dealt with over the last week. So I called a new cell phone company to get my due date, and it's a nightmare. I used to love this company. There's no contracts and stuff, and their service never failed. But I hate it. It's been a nightmare, basically. So I called the cell phone company to get the recurring due date. And first they tell me that I'm not set up. And I'm like, well, I couldn't have turned it on. If I didn't set it up, it wouldn't have allowed me to, do all this. Anyway, so after an hour's worth of crap, I finally got that the 8th is the renewal date. Okay, first of all, that's wrong. The emails and everything that I sent in the day that I got the phone and turned it on, I don't believe it was the 8th. Maybe it was. So let's move on. The first time that I ever got a partial prescription from the pharmacy, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I'm like, I don't know when this gets refilled. I don't know when to go in there again. And I walk or I ride my bike, so I like to just do everything at once. So I call to get the renewal date or whatever. And she tells me it's the 8th, which is actually wrong. I counted because she said 18 days, so I counted, and it's the 6th. It's not actually the 8th. So again, do with that as you will. Are these big things? No, but if you've followed the channel for any length of time, you know that it just adds to the pile at this point. So yeah, again, I've been wondering about the people just kind of like, did they just walk away? Is that why there were dishes and things? Or were they raptured up and out? Was something going to happen and they were raptured out of a situation? And again, I'm just trying to get us to open our minds a little bit and change our perspective so that maybe we can have more compassion for others and understand our own situation and the precarious position that we are in. And I'll get to that at the end of this video. So, the next thing, oh gosh, is the wicked witch moments that I seem to have that repeat in my life all the time. Okay, so just to catch you up, I love Snow White, and yes, I'm an adult woman. I have adult children now. There's a reason, like, these stories appeal to women especially. Again, there are really deep moral lessons in them, and there's a reason, actually, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, there's a reason that Disney has been debased over the last few years, because originally there was truth in these fairy tales, and I've showed that. I did a video relating the Mandela effect to the Little Red Riding Hood and the verse of the lion laying down with the lamb, or the wolf laying down with the lamb, whatever it is. Anyways, I did a story or a video, story type video regarding how that reminded me of Little Red Riding Hood, and I think we were being warned that there were wolves in sheep's clothing. What is sheep's clothing? Well, if humanity is God's sheep, then our clothing is our flesh. And you see that repeated as well in Little Red Riding Hood, where the wolf dresses up as the grandmother. Now, granted, he puts on literal clothes, but I'm talking about fallen angels that have the ability to shapeshift. Call them aliens, I don't care. The point is to understand that we're not alone here, but we're also not left defenseless. And that's why I try to teach about, and this is the only thing I'll say I actually teach because I know about it. The rest is what I get from the Holy Spirit and God. This also comes from God, but the only thing I really teach is consent and how to wield your free will. You have to reclaim that. You have to understand you're sovereign, and then you have to use that in a proper and appropriate manner to help yourself and those around you. So and this relates to the 8th as well. You'll see in a minute. So I went to church 2 weeks ago, and I come out of church, and again, I'm pretty sure that these beings, whatever they are, and I don't think it's fair. We were told that they couldn't do this, but somehow they know future. They know future events. Not all of them, but some of them. Maybe it's the chronovisor. I don't know. We've talked about that as well. But they know future events because the same being, one or two, maybe it's my guardian angel and whatever demon that follows me, but I know that I've gotten help and messages from the same couple of beings, but in different people. Now, if you've watched Supernatural, you'll understand that element as well. Fairy tales, though, I went to church, and I come out, and there's this woman, and them knowing the future is key here, because only by knowing the future would they know what I would have chosen, okay? I turn around, and I step out of the way to get out of somebody's way, waiting for my ride, and I'm just kind of about to step back, and I ask the woman something, excuse me, about the service, because I'm like, do you know if they teach Latin here? And she says, no, I don't think so, but I didn't remember seeing her in church, and that's kind of why I specifically wanted to talk to her. Yes, I'm there to to talk to God and to worship, but you could do that anywhere. Nature is God's kingdom, right? But anyways, there are specific reasons I do that, and that's not what this video is about, but I do observe my surroundings very carefully these days, especially. This woman was not in church. I know she wasn't in church. But somehow she cozied up to us who were walking out of the church. Okay, and again, this Wicked Witch thing comes into play in a minute. And I'm not saying I'm Snow White by any means. My name does mean white wave or white spirit. Do with that as you will. I'm not pure or anything like that, but for the sake of relating to people and showing you how many stories seem to be knitted into the background of our reality, and why do they come to life like that? And I think I've proven this over and over again. And has it always happened, or is it just now in this time of the Antichrist spirit, running to and fro the earth all over the place? I don't know. I'm asking you guys, do you know? Comments will be turned after the video is over. I'm just not going to deal with the stalkers and the trolls anymore. And they do get called out here. People say don't feed the trolls, but we've done that long enough. We've allowed people to get away with bad behaviors, and this is why we're in the predicaments that we're in. And this is why people are walking down the street punching women in the face. I mean, Europe went through all this a few years ago. If you watch the news or RT, they shut RT down because they don't want us seeing what's actually going on in other countries. And they've made Russia the scapegoat. And that's, I'm going to stick with that, man. we all live here together. Like, we're all neighbors. So anyways, I asked this woman, do they teach Latin here? Because I pull up the missals, and it's supposed to be the same across the board. And I pull up the missals, and it's the same for the gospel. And it's the same for a certain portion, but then there's all this extra stuff, and I don't know where that's coming from. And she says, yeah, isn't that funny like that? Anyway, come to find out, this woman is selling Eclipse t-shirts. And I'm like, well, okay, yeah, maybe I'll take one. And it's for animals. And she's telling me about PetSmart and how she works there. And, she's no expert. But she's really into astronomy. And she had no problem telling me her name. And I did look her up. And she has a lot of different profiles over a lot of different social media. I always vet people. Again, is it the phone just gaslighting me? I don't know at this point. Again, we know that these things are seemingly having a mind of their own lately, and that they show you videos that you just happen to be thinking about. I mean, if it's actual people making the videos, are we all just that psychic? What is going on here? Are they real people even? These people who, allegedly have millions of followers? I don't know anymore. I honestly don't. Seeing what they've always been able to do with AI, knowing that celebrities can sell their images. Where are the actual celebrities now? They don't have to worry about a whining person who is high maintenance, or who they have to give breaks to feed and all this stuff. Computerized AI versions have always been, they perceive them to be more efficient in those ways. They're not useless eaters like they call us organic beings. Moving on. So this woman, she ends up pushing 2 t-shirts on me, and I'm like, okay, it's for charity. But of course I look her up, and the more I get to thinking about it, this is a pattern in my life. I always have some older woman that I find out I couldn't trust in the end. And they always pop up in the strangest places, but never at my home, never at my door, usually. And that's key when regarding consent and letting people in. I've been very, very vigilant in telling you all about being careful right now. Do not let people into your home who are strangers. Do not invite them in, because you don't know what you're inviting in with them, or for how long it will stay, especially if you don't know how to get rid of these things. And again, I'm telling you this from experience, because I went through it all. Call me crazy. I don't care. You're going to be the one in the end who needs people like me, because if what's coming, if what we think is coming, there's not going to be any hiding any of it anymore. So I've always had a witch type of older woman approaching me, usually with the intent of doing me harm. My dad's ex-girlfriend, who committed identity fraud and theft against him. People act like I'm crazy for vetting people. Identity theft's a real thing. Internet stalking is a real thing. Watch the Sandra Bullock movie, The Net, when the internet was brand new. Oh, that's just a movie. I know, because people never hack, right? And you don't have any enemies that might want to start messing with your life because they're good with computers and because you offended them in some way. That is so out of the realm of possibility. I must be insane thinking these things, right? Come on, man. It's not working anymore. People don't buy it anymore. They just don't. You can't call us all crazy. Now there's demon disease, capybara syndrome, schizophrenia. How many things are you going to use to cover up that there is a spiritual life and that there is a war here for people's souls? And you should be scared. And I'm not a fearmonger, but I think you should be scared. Maybe it'll wake you up and you'll start treating yourself and others better. So I always have this Snow White moment with older women. My dad's girlfriend, my mother's stepmother, who she said was a monster, locked her outside in the snow. My mom was a stepchild. She wouldn't buy her new shoes that fit. She had to wear her shoes so they were holy, and then she'd put cereal boxes in them. Just on these stories that we hear, right, about how the previous generation, things were so terrible for them. Again, I don't know if we should believe any of this stuff. A lot of it seems like it's meant to propagate fear in order to modify your behavior. I'm telling you, fear is self-preserving in a way, and then it's good in a way, because if certain things happen that we've been warned about happening, you can't say, well, I have all this time, I can do that tomorrow. You don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. None of us do. Honestly, if I were a creator maker and I saw beings like totally acting insane, like, I'm not the insane one, because I kind of am isolated and secluded, and I choose not to partake of clubbing anymore and ridiculing other people and gossiping and on, man. Those of us who separate ourselves, we're not the crazy ones. Maybe stop intaking so much sugar and so much light, death, and take a minute of just silence and be alone with yourself. There are so many things that are possible that are coming because of this sign in the sky that comes for an evil and wicked generation. Now, we had a warning in 2017 with the woman in the sky. These events only take place every couple of thousand years, allegedly, if they are cyclical. And we already went over the Carrington event, that these things do seem to come in together. Like, you have some type of solar event, some at the time of an eclipse, or an alignment, a conjunction of the planets, and as above, so below. It affects the earth. The earth will shake and things of that nature. I've done my job. I've warned everybody. I've pretty much named the AC like I was asked to do. And I'm trying to just be as quiet as possible until the 8th. And I know what people think of me, and I don't know why some people still come to the channel anyway when they think so lowly of me. But I suppose that's why God chose people like me to be delivering warnings, is because we know what certain behavior will bring and what it will do to the self, to the soul, and to those around you. You might not think you're harming anyone else if you're harming yourself, but I promise you that you are. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, and this gets... I'm not going to say this word right. So, again, I don't know much about it. I'm just going to briefly go over it. Sedevacantism is basically you become a schismatic because you don't believe that the Pope is the legitimate Pope. Listen, we've had evil rulers since the beginning of time. Since we fell from grace and knew what evil was, we have had wicked rulers. We have the ruler we have now because we are under judgment. I mean, people think that this isn't the result, that judgment is coming. Judgment is here. We're in the thick of it. We have Biden, or whoever that is, making these declarations. And now what he did, this demon-possessed AI organic bot type being, declared Easter Sunday as Transsexual Awareness Day. Now, I guess the day he declared it a couple of years ago, but now he's specifically commemorated it and whatnot and brought it into the public awareness on Resurrection Day. It's called Resurrection Day, and the season is called Passover. For everyone saying, I wish we had something else to call it because it's so pagan. It's called Passover. It's Passover. Because in the Old Testament, they were told to get a lamb and to take the lamb and process it, use all the parts of it, dedicate it. Now, when you do a sacrifice, you respect that sacrifice and you do things in a humane and proper manner as well. Then they were told to take the blood of the lamb and put it on the doorway so that all of those who had that, the angel of death would pass over their homes because the blood of the lamb defeats. Do you hear what I'm saying here? It is a prophecy about Christ, and most people can't see that our Messiah has already been here, and God is being patient and giving everybody who has yet to be born the chance to decide for themselves. It's called Passover. And eggs in and of themselves aren't wicked. It means new birth. That's why sometimes you'll see Mary Magdalene with an egg, because she helped to birth the church, as much as people want to cover that up too. And possibly she helped to birth the bloodline, but I'm not going to debate that with people. I don't believe I'm a schismatic. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking questions. I think we should question authority. I don't think we're here to just be blindly submissive to all things. There is a proper order to things, and we're not told to specifically be obedient to evil. But we aren't told to be brought to violence either. And yes, I said that sometimes the world needs a revolution for there to be change instilled and instigated. Revolution can be a revolution in thought, revolution in spirit, revolution, evolution. Another one, a repetitive evolution. Our spirits should continually be refined as we are here. Now, as far as the seat of the Pope, I didn't know that it had a name and all this other stuff. I'm going to say something pretty... We don't know who's in that seat. We don't know who. Unless you're in Rome, you have no idea. We don't know what goes beyond those walls. Now, originally the wall was built, again, to keep historical documents safe, because they knew a time like this would come, and they had seen what happened with World War II. Every time communism tries to take over, it destroys everything beautiful. That's why they're destroying the paintings. That's why all this stuff is happening. Socialism is just communism rebranded, and they've weaponized the youth against us and created an intentional generation gap and re-educated them in a different way. I couldn't even talk to my son about basic science and biology because they're teaching him completely different things. And there you have an intentional generation gap where your child no longer trusts you, and they trust the authority of whoever's above them blindly. We're told to test the spirit. We're not told to just be blindly submissive, especially Christians. We have an obligation to set a good example, and that's what I'm trying to do these days. And sometimes that takes hard talking. It's called Passover, okay? Because you put the blood of the sacrifice of the lamb on your doorway so the angel of death would pass over those homes, and the firstborn male would not be killed as Herod had ordered. That's why they did it. That's why it's called Passover. Christ is the lamb. He was to be the last sacrifice. We're not supposed to be participating in barbaristic acts like that anymore. He was supposed to be the end of all that. That's why he said it is finished. But our demon-possessed, AI bot, synthetic, whatever president Not my president. I'll say that real clear. Not my king. Not even my husband at this point. Christ is king. It's not a joke. It's not a meme. It's just the truth. And hey, if you don't believe, you're free to believe what you want to believe, right? But don't go around harming people because they don't believe what you believe. I want you to be converted. I believe the Catholic Church started as the universal true church. But I also believe we just had the 1,000-year reign, possibly. And this might be the little season. It doesn't matter what season it is. We're supposed to conduct ourselves in the same manner, and we're not supposed to be asleep. So some of us have been watching and warning from the wall, from the wilderness, since 2017. And quite frankly, we're tired. We're tired. Now, you can go watch these big channels, go watch the Kennedy show. I don't personally care. I don't transcribe to none of it. I don't trust anything that comes out of somebody's mouth who's being paid to speak. If you're getting paid to speak, somebody is paying you to speak their agenda. Bottom line, I don't care anymore. And that's just the truth. So if you want to go be a part of the group, go, have fun. But don't say we didn't try warning people. Nothing is normal. Nothing is as it was. Our country has pretty much fallen. Our government is being dismantled. Why do you think all these people in high positions or long-time holding positions are retiring? Come on, man. There's already a vacuum and they're rebuilding the government while we sit here and argue. So I'm not going to argue with people in that way. It is just the truth. And I love you. That's why I do this. That's why I take the abuse, is because I love God and I love the family He gave me. I love my community. I chose this community. Let's all be kind. Go do something kind for someone else. Take yourself out of your own situational problems and go do something for someone else. Go pick up litter in your town. I know it's there because it's in mine and I live in a beautiful place. Go pick up your town. Because this bickering and arguing back and forth ain't gonna get any of us anywhere. You can call me crazy if it makes you feel better. But in the end, you can't say I didn't try to help.